love. We have been doing the engineering and building this stuff, and while we're excited to actually see it come to fruition and get up there, the best part is watching people like yourselves who are going to be using this every day be so excited. So we sort of get a lot of benefit from your excitement to appreciate the work that the team's been working on for so long.
The folks at home, you know, for the people that we serve, that you guys serve, why should they be excited about this as well?
Because they've seen this kind of data every day.
Yeah.
You know, the Weather Channel, they see it on their devices, but we're going to be giving stuff with so much more precise knowledge, where events are, what's happening, so that when warnings come out, they'll know that is real with a higher confidence. They should act right when you guys say it's time to go. And the false alarms we reduce, so they'll know that when it comes out, it is time to act. So we'll be saving lives with this data, and all the Americans will be appreciative of that.
Now, as best we can tell, I mean, obviously, weather not a problem. So I noticed that a T-minus to a hold. We just lost our lights for a moment, but I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. It's
kind of romantic right now. The romance of space.
Dust.
The romance
We're
of
setting the mood for the launch.
But what, you know, when you see something like this, as far as our ability to go into space and bring this information back, don't you still kind of have a certain amount of romance about it? And awe?
Yeah.
It is just so exciting because what we've seen is this has been around for, this kind of satellite's been around for 40 years. But we are making the advancements like we've never been able to do in the history of this program. So that the changes that we're introducing, the introducing of a lightning mapper to really understand how that severe weather is operating and what it's going to do to impact us and how you guys can use that to make better warnings is just fascinating to me.
And we're just getting word that they will not be launching at the opening of the window, at the beginning of the window at this point. What does that mean in terms of times? And we've got a 1 hour window, so what are we talking about here?
I'm not sure exactly the dynamic, but you know, every system is monitored and very carefully watched, so that if there's anything that is a little bit anomalous, you make sure that it's working just fine. So there's always those kind of things. That's why we have a wide window.
Right.
You know, so as we come down, we make sure every system is working. The whole team over there in that pink building there is going through the go no goes and making sure every system is operating. That downrange, all the antennas that are going to talk to satellites as it goes around the Earth. People around the world are waiting to start talking to this as it goes by. All that stuff has to be in place.
Now, the launch window tonight is a little shorter than usual. Normally there's a 2 hour window, right? We just have 1 hour.
Yeah, we normally have a 2 hour window, but because we're so close to Thanksgiving, the FAA controls this airspace, and rockets compete with airplanes, I guess. So
you know, I never thought about that.
And so they said, you only get
We're listening to NASA TV. They have some explations going on.
5-minute increments as they discuss the issue today. So our next possible launch opportunity is at 5:47 p.m.
And here's one of the things, Greg, that, you know, I think people tend to forget, that it's not just this launch and it's not just that vehicle, but there's a whole range of people and all sorts of information and systems that have to coordinate with this.
Right, absolutely. I know we can see, you know, you see the pink building right there. That's the operations center where they're doing the go, no go. And just up the coast there are other hangars full of engineers and councils watching every aspect and every component during this countdown, making sure each of those subsystems is working. And again, like I said, around the world, we've got people at their antennas waiting to talk to the satellite as it goes by.
No.
So it is a big team right now.
We know this is the first of 4 satellites.
Yes.
So the other satellites, S, T, and U, are they identical to GOES-R?
They're all identical. In fact, many of the instruments are already built. The imager, we've already built 4 of them. They're all complete. In fact, the GOES-S satellite is actually finished. It's totally built. And we are just starting the environmental test program that takes a couple of years. So we're on set to launch in early 18 with that. So it's a long, drawn-out business to build all these satellites. And we're doing a fabulous job, I think, bringing this kind of technology to the nation.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's exciting, and I know it's exciting for everyone who's worked on it and contributed ideas to it. You know, I talked to some National Weather Service forecasters who are actually working on the proving ground, looking at the data, or similar data, like we would get from GOES-R, and testing to see what kind of improvement it would make on our forecast.
Right.
NASA's now saying it's an unknown vehicle issue.
Okay.
So what does that terminology indicate?
That means probably one of the subsystems, the satellite's been running for a couple of days, all the systems are operating, the computers are all talking to each other, sending back status information. And what we do is we have limits. In other words, as each of them can operate within a certain bounds, upper, lower limits, and all the engineers and specialists for each of those subsystems are watching them. So if one of them exceeds a bound, for example, like a battery temperature, right? If this is a little cold or a little hot, you stop and you figure out what's wrong. Is this a concern or not? And so most of the time we're just looking at what is it that's out of limits and understanding why it is and if it is impact for the launch.
And what's going on right now in that control area? I mean,
in the pink building.
In the pink building.
Listening to
a launch vehicle issue.
We're going to go to NASA TV.
We have about an hour left in the hold. In order to make today's launch window, we must launch by 6:42 p.m. Eastern Time.
This is Atlas Launch Control.
Okay, now, so what's going on in control right now?
So what it is you have the management team that's making the decisions on the go-no-go, listening to the various subject matter experts. So each of the systems in the launch vehicle, the Centaur, and the satellite are monitoring the telemetry that's coming out from the system. So they're looking at all the various factors, the numbers, how much power is going on, how the data are flowing, all the telemetry monitoring to make sure they're all within limits. So as they carefully monitor that, if things are a little bit out of whack, which apparently something is there, they got to really go then, and the engineers who are responsible for that area start going through their checklist to really understand what is the system, what could be causing it, and if it's a concern that would affect delaying the launch. So there's probably a whole lot of anxiousness out there in all those engineers as the person who's really the key person is really digging into it.
In preparing for a situation like this, preparing for launch day, I'm assuming they run through every scenario of what could go wrong and how to fix it.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, they've done dress rehearsals, they've done the countdown and checked all these systems. So this is something they do routinely. The experts here have done this, especially on the Atlas side. It's very routine. They've done this many, many, many times, and they know those systems in incredible detail and exactly what's going on with all these.
We're talking right now to Greg Mant, who is the program manager for GOES-R. And at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, who makes that final decision, whether it's a go or a no-go?
Well, there's basically a launch director. So we have a large team member, all of them with each of the responsibilities, feeding up to the next level, feeding up to the next level, till you have that last person who, once he gets a go from every one of his components, when he hears everyone's ready and everybody's a go, not only the systems here, but the downrange systems that are the antennas around the world, those sites, when he gets thumbs up from all of them, he'll say, we're ready to go. So he needs everyone to make that clear.
Okay, let's just listen in.
Solution of a launch vehicle issue. So the Atlas V rocket with the GOES-R spacecraft will not be launching as expected at 5:42 p.m. There is a 1-hour launch window today that expires at 6:42 p.m. The launch team is resetting the clock in 5-minute increments as they work through the issue. Our current no earlier than launch time is 5:52 p.m. Eastern. Once again, an issue is being worked on the launch vehicle, and we'll stand by for further details.
Well, so it's interesting to find out every 5 minutes they're resetting the clock to get that going on. So let's bring in Jay Barbary also, along with Greg Mant. Jay, what was the first for our viewers on the Weather Channel who obviously know Jay? Jay, you've been NBC News space expert. What was your first launch?
My very first launch. It was a Thor launch back in 1958, and I got so excited, Al, I called it a ballistic missile. Yeah, I'm 108 years old now. but 58 years covering here. You know, what we're going on here, we're going every 5 minutes. They're trying to pin down what the problem is. So the next opportunity is quickly running out at 5:50. I mean, at 4:47 and 5:52, and it'll just keep going like that.
Will it keep advancing in 5-minute increments?
Yeah, and unless we can settle it. So, anyway, everything was going great. It was going too great. So, we got until 6:42. So,
Greg, when this is going on, something like this is going on, do you have to, in a sense, go into like an auto mode? I mean, because otherwise, I think people start to, in our business, when things start going wrong, that's when people start making mistakes.
Well, in this business, there's nothing less than perfection that's acceptable. And so just like this launch has been delayed a couple times, we want to make sure that things are done completely and correctly. So when we get to the launch, we're not going to push that button until every little component is perfect. So, it's more concerned that we would just go without that. And so when you go through these type of things, you know that the right people are looking at it, and they're going to be very cautious and not give their thumbs up that they're ready unless everything is really perfect.
I think it's interesting, the engineers that come together to work on this have come from Boeing, from Harris, Gozar, Lockheed. There's certainly a lot of people, a lot of organizations involved in the making of it and of the launch vehicle as well.
And I think the other interesting thing is you've got the next launch, the S coming up in 18, and then 19.
T is 19.
T is 19. But then there's a gap for you till 2024. Right. Why that gap?
Well, we're an operational system. So as an operational system, we need to cover all the U.S. interests. So we fly one in what we call the east location, one in the west location. So we need two operating at all times. So basically what we'll do is we'll put two up to give the operational coverage to replace the older generations. With the third one sort of sits there as the spare. So the fourth one you really don't need until one of those fails. And so it's there on the ground waiting to resupply the thing. And then we have to start building the next generation to keep that continuous two-satellite constellation.
I like the idea that they got a spare, Jay.
Just in case. A lot of folks are wondering, where will this particular Gozar go? Will it go to goes east or goes west? Who's winning right now?
I'm taking a little bit of side bet here. So,
really?
Yeah, what do you think?
I'm going east.
You're going east. That's where my money is, too. So we got to find some west guys. Poor Alaska and Hawaii, I work with those guys, and they really wish they did. But, the hurricanes and all the people on the East Coast sort of make that why we think that. But
where's D.C.?
D.C., that's
Washington, D.C.
That's east.
East,
yes.
Right? Okay, that's your answer.
So
Al Sharp, you don't get it by.
So
this is Atlas Launch Control. We remain in our T-minus 4-minute hold as you are watching the Atlas V rocket at Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Once again, we are in an extended hold because of a technical issue on the launch vehicle. Managers continue to work the issue and reset to the countdown clock for the T0 time in 5-minute increments. Our new no earlier than launch time is 5:57 p.m. Eastern Time. This is Atlas Launch Control.
That's a 15-minute delay.
Wow.
So, Jay, this is a big launch for me. Certainly, this is the first satellite launch that, certainly has taken this kind of attention. But in past history in weather satellite launches, have they gained and garnered this kind of attention?
Oh, sure. Well, the first try was with the 2nd Vanguard in 1959, and what they had on board never worked. So the real first weather satellite was in April 1960. It was Tyros 1, built by RCA, who owned NBC at the time, And so we got the first real weather satellite then. And there have been a lot of them ever since. And what's coming on board here, I think this gentleman here can tell you, it's going to be magnificent. I mean, this is really, they keep making the statement, it's from black and white TV to high-def TV, by God as it is. And, we're going to have to put a couple of rocks on Al's leg, because when he gets this Gozar to work with on the air, you're not going to be able to hold him down.
It's so exciting, because, listen, I'm old enough, I've been forecasting broadcasting long enough that we used to get a satellite loop that was 12 hours old on film, and then show it at 6 o'clock at night.
And that was exciting because that was what you had.
That was state of the art back then.
And that's like when I've talked to forecasters and talk about this great new technology, that's what I get from us, is Greg, it's not so much, whereas that's exciting, but the fact that you can get us so fast. So it's like watching what's going on right now and seeing a movie of it. It's like a camera in the sky that they can see it all right now. That's what's building their excitement. It's the speed with which we can get the data to the users.
If you can't see the sky, the second best thing is seeing a satellite picture of what the sky looks like, and we'll get to practically see what it looks like in near real time.
As the hold extends, and I know that prior performance doesn't have anything to do with future type things. As it extends, does that portend that it may not happen, or that one delay has nothing to do with what another is?
It's hard to guess. I mean, you could go in 15 minutes, or you could scrub and go try again tomorrow night. You never know. You mentioned the Tyros. I was involved a long time with the Tyros and DMSP programs, and they launch out of Vandenberg, out on the West Coast, in the middle of the night typically. And I have spent many nights going out there, doing the countdown, and then saying, "Whoop, we're scrubbed for the night, come back tomorrow," and then heading back, and then doing it over and over and over again. So when you're in the business, you get used to this. It doesn't seem unusual to get caught in these situations where you just have to wait and be patient.
We were pretty excited about the timing of this launch because being just after sunset, we were hoping to get that gorgeous rainbow plume behind the rocket. So likely at this point we're not going to get to see that.
Well, if it goes now, you're going to get that because the sun is down low enough. And I remember when they launched Project Score back in 1958, which was on December the 18th, and it was a secret one where they were putting a whole atlas in orbit, and Eisenhower was standing by to announce it from Washington. Well, this thing took off in darkness. This isn't dark yet, but at 6:02 it'll be dark. And it took off at dark, and it climbed up into the sun, and everybody thought they thought the second coming was underway. Because nobody knew what was going on, but that's all it was. It was up in the sun, and we'll see that now if we get it off tonight because it is a delayed launch.
Yeah, part of this is there's a lot of first-time launch folks here tonight. We did a survey at OSB2 about how many people, and it's like 3/4 of the audience said, yeah, this is their first launch.
Wow.
So you have a lot of people out here because of this great technology and weather. So a lot of the weather community who really have never seen a launch this up this close. So the expectation of everything is perfect and on time. This is a good reality check that this is a very complex business. Everyone works hard to do it on schedule and on time, but it doesn't happen. I'm sure your business is like that too.
Atlas Launch Control. We remain in our hold at T-minus 4 minutes as managers and engineers resolve a launch vehicle issue. The new no earlier than time for liftoff has just been set for 6:02 p.m. Eastern Time, which will leave us with 40 minutes remaining in our launch window. Discussions continue to resolve the issue. Teams from NOAA, NASA, and United Launch Alliance all working toward liftoff today of the Atlas V rocket and NOAA's GOES-R spacecraft. Once again, we are standing by for the resolution of a launch vehicle issue and remain in our hold at T-minus 4 minutes. This is Atlas Launch Control.
It's a 20-minute delay, and if it goes, it'll be at 6:02, and that'll be the same time the Score when I was talking about. That was probably the most fantastic launch that I've ever seen here in the 58 years I've been here. And so it'll be something to see. So let's cross our fingers and hope we make 6:02, Greg. Greg's ready to make 6:02.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
In fact, before Greg came on, he said, "Listen, I'm happy to come talk, but I can't turn away from the camera and watch the launch."
You're not going to make me look at something else, are you?
We would never take that away from you. What a special time this is, no doubt, for everyone involved with the program and everyone here. People have come to watch GOES-R liftoff, and they are set up from Titusville down to the beaches of Cape Canaveral. What is the next launch window if we don't go today?
We have one set up for tomorrow night. It's a little bit earlier. It's the first half of our tour window, so the 4:42 to 5:42 is the window. And so we would just reset and just do everything over just like we did today. So maybe we get more time with you if that happens, you know?
Well, you know, when you do something like this, I know that, how do you deal with the disappointment when the inevitable happens and it doesn't go for that day?
Well, I don't treat it as disappointment. I know, you know, I've been working on this for 9 years. We've had a lot of efforts. You know, we have delays. Things don't go quite as well. We go back. And it is just we know that each step we're making forward progress. So when it happens, and you do your best to make that as fast as possible. You don't really worry about the steps you do to slow you down or whatever happens.
You know, speaking of delays, we had a delay because of Hurricane Matthew, a couple of days delay.
Absolutely, we had a large delay.
And so what did it feel like knowing that GOES-R was in the Astrotech facility here and Hurricane Matthew was, you know, heading right towards or along the Florida coast?
Yeah, that was a little nerve-wracking because you don't know how far it was going to come inland. And but that building is a pretty strong Cat 3 rated building, I think it is. And we were pretty sure that it was going to be fine. We had backup power to it, and as long as it didn't take a major category hit directly, you know. But it's all that, you know, you have to deal with that, the risk in this business. We left the booster up in Decatur, Georgia, so we left that up there. We didn't bring that down here because we waited till the hurricane went by and flew it down here the Sunday afterwards and started moving forward. But that's just another example of the delays that came in, and you just keep moving forward.
But you didn't waste any time. I mean, Hurricane Matthew was out.
Right. The
clean up the next day. The next day,
Kennedy was barely open, and we flew the launch vehicle in. Exactly.
How many people are involved right now, roughly, in this launch? You know, here in the center.
400 or 500. I mean, it is a large group of people. I'm really looking at all the systems and being in all the different buildings, and it takes a lot of people to make something this complex work.
Jay, when you think back to all of these launches, and which ones stick out in your mind?
Well, Project SCORE I was talking about a while ago, that really sticks out because we had learned that they were trying to put it in orbit, but we couldn't say anything because if it hadn't gone into orbit, they would have never denied it. You know, and it was an ARPA, Advanced Research Project Agency. So Eisenhower announced it from the White House dinner like 2 hours after it went up and it went into orbit. But the calls that came in, they didn't know what was happening because they've never seen anything fly up into the sun like that. And we're going to get to see if they do go off at 6:02 this year. And this will be one of the greatest sights that you've ever seen, you know, in a launch. But there have been so many of them, and that we've been through, and there's been different examples that you can be. Of course, the one thing that I remember most was John Glenn's launch. When John was sitting on top of an Atlas like this on February the 12th.
This is Atlas Launch Control. We remain in our hold at T-minus 4 minutes as launch managers continue to reset the potential T0 time in 5-minute increments as we move through our launch window this evening. They wish to allow at least 10 minutes for the GOES-R spacecraft team to power up the spacecraft and also to accomplish other launch tasks in the remaining time of the hold. This all as they continue to work resolution to a launch vehicle issue that continues to persist. And the new possible earliest T0 time would be 6:07 p.m. Eastern Time. That would leave us with 35 minutes remaining in the hold. We'll continue to provide information as it's available. Once again, though, we are at T-minus 4 minutes and holding. This is Atlas Launch Control.
You know who's that voice?
Mike Curie, C-U-R-I-E.
Because that's, boy, he's as cool as a cucumber.
Yes, classic.
Well, he's the chief of information here, and he's quite a guy. He's been around for quite a long time. But Mike, and then the other guy generally here is George Diller. But Mike does a terrific job. He's a great guy and does a terrific job. And most of them do. Most of them that NASA has here does a great job, and as does the whole space industry itself, like Greg here is working for GOES and working for, for the NOAA and all, right?
Yes. No.
Yeah, but the industry as a whole, they all do a great job. But we'll still have a beautiful launch if it goes off. It'll still climb up into it at 6:07.
That's right. Compared to the launch plume, even the booster is small, and the night launches are nice because when you see that flame, that is the dominant view, and you get to watch that for quite a while, no matter how dark it is.
What's going to go through your mind when you see your satellite go up into space?
Oh, it's a real sense of closure. Just so much work's been going into this. It was like, I mentioned this morning, it's, I'm a father of 5, and I feel like I'm pacing here waiting for the birth of my 6th child. It's, you got all the experts out there doing the work, and nothing you can do but pace and wait in anticipation for the big event.
When I've talked with Dr. Sullivan and Lou Uccinelli from National Weather Service, head of National Weather Service, everybody talks about, look, the weather community internationally is a great community, and they share. But let's face it, the idea that this satellite is going to put us at the top of the heap as far as weather satellite technology, there's got to be a certain amount of pride.
Oh, there's a tremendous amount of pride, because really the U.S. scientific community is just incredible. The ones who dream these ideas up, to understand what is going on in the atmospheric physics and what we need to do to better understand it and make better predictions. They're world class. So a lot of our ideas in the world generate out of the U.S. research community, and then over many years it manifests themselves into technological marvels such as GOES-R, and other countries then emulate that and start to build the similar capability. So it's fun to be in the lead of these kind of technologies, but it's even more fun to watch the rest of the world participate with and share the data and do the same thing for the whole globe.
And I think it's fascinating how many decades have been spent developing some of these technologies, like the lightning mapper. That's something really, really exciting on this satellite, is the geostationary lightning mapper. And, that's been decades in the works.
If you think about it, a researcher, a scientist had that concept, if we could understand the lightning, we could do wonderful things with it. So these things are going on in the 60s and 70s, and they finally convinced NASA on the TRIM mission to put in a lightning mapper to really measure the lightning thing in the tropical areas. And once they did that, it was fine. Then they had to convince the operation community that, there's applications here for the forecaster. And I remember the early days of going back and forth. Well, can we afford it? Do we want it? Do we want it? And go back and forth. Lots of those battles before you even start selling it to Congress, getting the money for it, and then starting to develop it. So from the early ideas to an experiment on a NASA satellite to convincing the operations community to put it on is truly many decades. Quite amazing that what it takes to really get to the point we are in these technologies.
Wow. And we just lost our video feed, but I guess we're okay still on the air.
Let's listen in.
Box 2. Roger. Have you had to run a reconditioning sequence yet?
Yes, we've done this once.
Roger.
Should sneak back.
Just FYI, we're hoping to get resolution to the issue here shortly, and so keep advised if you come up on a requirement to have to run that again.
Sound good, Al.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound good?
Doesn't sound
This is Atlas Launch Control.
We expect
Our new no earlier than T0 would be 6:12 p.m. Eastern Time. We remain in our hold at T-minus 4 minutes as the launch team continues to discuss a launch vehicle issue. There are 30 minutes remaining in the launch window today if we were to launch at 6:12 p.m.
I'm getting a positive sense that they resolved the issue. So
You think so?
The script's behind schedule, so hopefully we'll see start to see some progress soon. So
yeah, he just said they were
hear.
going to. Yeah, he just said they were going to come up with it shortly. But
yes,
the manner in which he said it, I gathered that they were going to that we were going to scrub today.
Okay.
But
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. I'll tell you, it'll be either or.
Yes.
You will be right or I'll be right.
That's the beauty of it.
So, Jay, will we go all the way to the end of the launch window? And or would we? Would it be possible to scrub before we get to the end of the launch window?
Oh, sure.
Yes,
Sure.
because there's a certain amount of time that they still have in the countdown script. Because if you heard, once they get the all clear from the launch vehicle, they have to go through a sequence of spacecraft tests that won't start until the launch vehicle clears. So the amount of time that takes, when you start pushing the end of the window, they'll know they can't finish the
He
script.
just said they needed them. I wanted
10
about
minutes,
10
I
minutes.
think he wanted 10 minutes.
Wanted about 10 minutes. So we should know by 6:32 anyway, I would think. Because, at 6:32, that'll be 10 minutes to the end of the window.
Yes.
And what time is it right now?
It's right now, it is 6:02.
Okay. So we got 30 minutes, yeah.
If we launch, see how dark it was for Project Score I was talking about?
Wow.
And this climbs up there, and all of a sudden you've got a light show. You don't.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Everybody's hitting their knees, and, praying. So,
Wow.
What's going on?
Greg, what was it like the first time you saw one of these go up?
Well, for me, in the earlier days, you didn't see very much because you're in a bunker too close to the thing, and you just saw what was going on outside. So the cameras and such. Well, the most memorable one, I would say, I was in the military, and I was the executive officer to a 3-star general who ran all the Air Force space. Mm-hmm. And the launch was delayed, and we had to go to D.C. for a meeting. And as we were coming back on a Learjet into Los Angeles, I was looking at my watch and said, you know that launch that we missed? Well, it should be going off any minute. Let's watch out the window. So from 30,000 feet,
Wow.
just east of L.A., we watched the launch in the dark, and you saw the bright light. It accelerated up, the staging. We saw the separation and going suborbital, because from that altitude, you could see the whole thing. So to me, that was the most spectacular, because you saw with your naked eye the entire launch sequence. Wow. So every time you see a launch, it's from a different vantage point, a little bit different view, and all of them have a powerful feeling, but they're all a blast. They're all very memorable.
And Jay, from the ground, from the beginning in television when we used to show these launches, now when you watch the resolution from these cameras from on the ground and from the air, the amount of time we can track this visually is amazing.
It sure is, and we see them going up now, and we see the staging, and we see everything, and we never had anything like this before. But you talk about memorable launches on Pad 41, where this is going from tonight. Just before Challenger, some of the astronauts were on board Challenger, and they're sitting there, and they're flipping the switches, and they're going through a simulation. Well, 41 is the next pad to 39, where they launched the shuttles from. And so they're sitting up there minding their business, and it's night. And down on Pad 41, the Air Force had a secret launch. And it was a Titan III, pretty big rocket. And this thing goes, and these guys, and they start, get us out of here.
Yikes.
They thought Challenger had ignited and was going up.
Wow.
And I'm scared.
This is Atlas Launch Control. We continue to await the resolution of a launch vehicle issue and remain in our T-minus 4-minute hold. Launch managers have now chosen the next possible no earlier than T0 time of 6:17 p.m. Eastern Time.
Pretty close.
Yep.
Which would allow 25 minutes remaining in our launch window, which closes at 6:42 p.m. tonight.
But even though they say that the window closes at 6:42, operationally, in reality, it would be about 6:32 because they said they need 10 minutes.
The countdown sequence has that much work.
Right.
Time to do it all. Yes.
Interesting.
So they'll have to decide to go or scrub by 6:32.
Right.
And we are how far away from
We're at 6:06.
Okay.
So
we have about 25 minutes.
yeah. Now I'm getting nervous.
Right. For sure. And I think of the excitement level of everyone I spoke with who's working with the GOES program, and excited to see it lift off tonight. I didn't get the sense that anyone thought it wouldn't go, but I guess you never really expect it not to go on time.
Yes,
right?
Yes. Those of us who've done it a few times know not to get too overly excited, or delays are just part of the business. It is with so many new people here to sometimes to. Wait a minute, I had a tea time here.
I've got dinner reservations.
Yes, what are you doing to me?
Come on. Now, once this launches, and for folks who are just joining us, give us a rundown, Greg, from the time this launches, when is it operational, or at least how long does it take to get up, and then how long before we actually start getting data that we can use?
So the launch vehicle process is, in just minutes, all of that energy in that launch vehicle is gone and separated. The upper stage, the Centaur, will take it for about 3.5 hours and do a few burns to get us into this geosynchronous transfer orbit. And then we'll have to use the integral thrusters on the spacecraft itself to take it from the transfer orbit up to the full geosynchronous orbit. That takes us about 2.5 weeks. Then once we get, after 2.5 weeks, we have to basically, the new car smell when you have a car? Well, that satellite has the same thing, so we've got to let it outgas about 30 days.
I just did that just before I got here.
Yeah, outgas? Oh, okay. So as those chemicals get away from the spacecraft, then we'll feel comfortable opening the covers on our very, very sensitive instruments. So once we do that, and we can start testing them and getting that. So in about another 30 days, we'll have perfected and got everything working real well, and we'll have our, the first baby picture, right? The first image from the ABI to share, and that will be a big event for us, too.
Oh, sure.
Then about 30 days later, we'll actually turn on the data flow, so people that are, the sophisticated users can actually start using it, with a caveat that it's not operational yet, but the data is pretty good, and you can start using it. So we'll see how many people feel comfortable. I think it's going to be such a wonderful data set that they'll use it. I don't care if it's called operational or not. So I know the Weather Service is excited about getting that. About 6 months after launch, I'm actually going to turn it over to our operational agency. In other words, we've tested it. And so the NOAA Operations Center will actually be operating it at that point after 6 months. And
check channel. Sorry, let's listen in.
Loud and clear.
So then the scientists will spend another 6 months really fine-tuning, making sure that all those products are very precise and exactly what we think they are, so that the users can be confident in them. So we'll still have east and west of the current GOES. But we'll be flowing this data from the center, so I'm sure that we'll see that.
This is Atlas Launch Control. We remain in our hold at T-minus 4 minutes, and we expect to hear some words here shortly on discussion on the launch vehicle issue.
Confirmed was a false positive indication. We are fully confident in the Murata valves as installed, and we recommend proceed.
LC copies and concurs. LD?
LD concurs.
And NLM?
NLM concurs.
Roger.
Yeah, fuel mixture valve looked like it was having little problems, and I think they got it cleared and understand what the problem was, so we'll hopefully get that cleared up real soon.
So you think we're going to go?
I'm still optimistic. I'm still optimistic.
Right.
You mentioned the other two.
Meanwhile, launch managers have targeted no earlier than T0 of 6:22 p.m. Eastern Time.
They got to say they're ready to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. So 6:22, which would, if you add that 10 minutes, would put it within.
Well, this was still
that'd be 14 minutes.
Right.
So we're 12 minutes from now. So we're
we have
looking for we're looking for 6:12, and we want to make 6:22. That's
right.
when we need to have the go.
We have an animation that we can roll, and I know you can't see it because we don't have a return feed right now, but it's going to talk about, the animation shows what happens once the rocket.
This is Atlas Launch Control. We remain in our hold at T-minus 4 minutes, but it appears that the team has resolved the technical issue that they've been working and continue to discuss a possible new T0 time, which currently is set up for 6:22 p.m. Eastern Time. Managers are polling their teams to assure that they're ready to pick up the count, and we'll stand by for more information.
Pick it up here short.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
That's very awesome.
You were right, Greg.
Well,
Hey, you got to be optimistic in this business, you know? I've been hanging around
That's
the weather
about
folks
10 and a half minutes from now.
Always confident in your forecast, right?
so what happens to the other two satellites that are up there now?
Well, the nation has gotten their
Money's worth.
Their money's worth out of them, right?
Go ahead.
Let's see, do not instruct the spacecraft to do internal. The range is working an issue.
Another issue.
A bit more time.
Roger. We will continue to stay in the hold.
So they're saying,
So it's a new issue
now.
So I mentioned how down range we have a lot. We have sites around the world.
And Launch Director Bill Cullen
one of them basically said,
instructing Launch Conductor Doug Lebo to stay in the hold as the Eastern Range works an issue.
Probably a boat.
Yeah.
Boat.
At our current T0 time of 6:22, we would have 20 minutes remaining in the launch window, which expires at 6:42 p.m. Eastern.
Eastern
Satellite
range goes from here to Ascension Island, which is 5,000 miles away. See, but they'll be tracking this the first couple of minutes.
Wow.
Then it'll be gone. It'll be his.
So something that small as a boat downrange could scrub this?
Yeah,
if they're in, yeah. See, because if they have to destroy it or anything as it's going up and it comes down and hits some boat out here, so there helicopters out there. If it's a boat, I'm just guessing, and they'll be running it away and getting it out of there and going.
Is that a frequent,
could even be a plane
problem at launch? It seems like it would be, actually.
There have been launches scrubbed because some boater sits out there in the water and doesn't get out of the area, and so they won't launch without that. So.
Wow, that's hard to believe.
It is. You would think it's his risk, if you're going to stay there.
That's amazing. When you've got something like this, that's so. How do you make sure that people are as safe as possible? Because it's obviously out over water. I mean, is it Coast Guards? Who's in charge of this?
Yeah, the Coast Guard's out there, plus the Air Force range. They use helicopters close by here, so we got the helicopters watching, but the Coast Guard mainly, and they try to run them off if they get in there. They try to keep them out of there, but it could be that somebody says, okay, it's going to go at 5:42, so here I go.
That's right.
And
it should be done now. So
yeah, it should be out
Back to the schedule.
Yeah.
Wow.
How far are we from the launch pad here? 4 miles, 5 miles?
I'm guessing about that. We're closer if we're over there, so we've got to go from the causeway here up to the road and the VAB, which is over here, which is about 4 or 5 miles. You're right. I'm just guessing.
Is it safe to be any closer?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot.
It's probably about a mile or two that they...
Yeah. You can get a lot closer. There's people up there that are where they sit there at a gate and they don't let anybody go. And I know a couple of astronauts I put in one of my books that decided to go out and get near the liftoff of a shuttle, and they were just a couple of 100 yards down.
What?
Well, yeah, they've been wearing something called hearing aids.
This is Atlas Launch Control as we look at various views of the Atlas Centaur configuration on Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida, fueled up and ready for its launch. After a period of time while managers were assessing a possible launch vehicle issue, that appears to have been resolved, and we remain in our hold because of an issue being worked by the Eastern Range, and a new no earlier than T0 time has been set for 6:27 p.m. Eastern time.
And the Eastern Range, who knows?
So we're getting close now. 6:27.
But at least we know that the rocket and the
rocket's ready.
All ready.
Good to go.
They're all ready. Now we just got to let the range work out its issue.
And with a 6:27 possible, that's 5 minutes, only a 5-minute leeway to that 10-minute time that they need to get it.
They got to have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
So
we're still at 6:32.
We need 6:32, no less.
Yeah, 6:32.
In range by 6:32.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
we have 16 minutes left, basically, which is
in the window.
In the window.
In the window.
Yeah.
But we know that we need to be 16 minutes before.
Somebody's trying to reach you. Somebody's trying to reach you, Jay.
Tell you got give you the latest scoop here.
If that's what it is.
I'm on the air. I think.
The ladies love Jay Barbary.
My wife is white.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
She called and said, "You're looking good. I see you. You're looking good."
How frustrating is it, though?
I got to tell you guys something. I sent him his wife. And you know, I went on the air with him on the Weather Channel one time, and they said, you know, Al Roker, and I said, I don't like him.
Oh!
And so they got all shook up because, what do you mean? Everybody loves Al. I said, I did. I sent him his wife, greatest wife in the world, and he never said thank you.
Deborah worked was the Cape Canaveral correspondent for Channel 9 here in Orlando, and then eventually went to NBC in New York, and that's where we met.
So you're going to thank him right now.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Jay. I don't know if she thanks you.
She doesn't. No, but the thing is that he doesn't know. I'll tell him something he doesn't know. I dropped dead jogging on the beach, and Deborah gave me CPR.
Wow.
And so I kissed your wife long before you did.
That's a long way to go to get to that story, Jay. I'm going to tell you that right now.
So what I was going to ask about the launch is,
before you were so rudely interrupted.
You know, the team works the issues. Goes are the launch vehicle all ready to go, and then it's a boater. I mean, how frustrating is
This is Atlas Launch Control. T-minus 4 minutes and holding, counting toward a possible T0 time of 6:27 p.m. Teams worked through a launch vehicle issue and appear to have resolved that, and we remain in our hold while the Eastern Range works an issue. Our window expires at 6:42 p.m. this evening.
And so, Greg, all those issues have to be resolved. They can't start doing whatever it takes them to do those 10 minutes while they resolve something else.
We have a script, a sequence of events that has to happen perfectly. And so if you can't clear the range, you're not going to start initializing the spacecraft for things that you to get that going. You can't carry out. So you really want that step to pass before you go into the next one. That's why there's a certain amount of time you're holding for all those things to get worked out. So we sort of know how much time the rest of the work that's needed, which is where that 10 minutes came from.
Did we get an updated time? I didn't hear an updated time. 6:27.
That
So we're
would
still
be
at
the earliest,
6:27.
but now that puts you at 10 minutes to go to 27. That puts you at 17. Yeah, 27.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I'm not thinking.
NSC, LC.
Go ahead, LC.
Roger, understand spacecraft's been given direction to go to internal power?
That is correct, sir.
Roger.
So they've got confidence. They've got confidence to move forward.
So if they're going to internal power,
by then
as managers talk through the remaining time in our launch window this evening, the GOES-R program has been given a go to put the spacecraft on internal power. The new no earlier than liftoff time has been moved 5 minutes additionally, and now is 6:32 p.m. Eastern Time.
6:32. Is this about as close as you can cut it?
Well, we still got the 10 minutes. We can go down to 6:32.
That's what I mean, but they said 6:32, which would put it right there.
Roger. Flight control, LC. Roger, load contingency file address _06.
Start the final 4 minute.
Yeah, but they've already started this 10-minute process.
They started that 10-minute process, so that's now shrinking.
We're standing by for the resolution by the Eastern Range of an issue that they are working before we can pick up the countdown of this evening's Atlas V rocket with the NASA GOES-R spacecraft.
I think, you know.
The anxiety, and I've got goosebumps. I mean, this is intense.
Wow.
You know, you said you
LC, LD.
more
Go ahead.
time with Roker.
Let's see, based on our situation with the
on the other
range,
side of it.
giving them the maximum time to resolve their issue, please coordinate a new T0 time of 23:42 Zulu.
Roger. Range coordinator, LC.
23.
RCN1.
Please coordinate a new T0 of 23:42 Zulu.
Copy. 23:42 and work.
Timer, LC.
Go ahead.
Please update the countdown clock for a new T0 of 23:42 Zulu.
Roger. 23:42 and work.
Yeah,
So,
let's do it.
So what does this mean?
Yes, what does this mean?
This is Atlas Launch Control, and as you've heard, managers have determined that they will target the end of today's launch window with a projected T0 of 6:42 p.m. to enable the U.S. Air Force Eastern Range time to work through the issue that it has been working.
Technical issue on that.
The GOES-R spacecraft has been configured to internal power, and teams are standing by to see if we will be able to lift off yet this evening. But once again, we're now targeting the end of the launch window at 6:42 p.m. Eastern Time.
They can get down to
This is Atlas Launch Control.
Then go. So 6:38, if it isn't resolved, then they're going to say that's it.
Right.
Because we need the 4 minutes of actual count time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we basically pushed it to the end of the window.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this,
Yes.
yeah.
They push it to the end of the window.
Are there any other checks beyond this that have to happen that could, again, scrub the launch?
I don't know where they are in the countdown sequence, but every step's got to happen, and at any point you can say, whoops, something came up, and that's what it is.
This, and when you have something like this, now, I mean, do you guys train to stay calm? Because I know.
Because Al's not. Yeah.
I'm a bundle of nerves right now.
I think it's a function of, there's nothing that you're going to do that's going to change it.
Right.
And you got the experts working it, and your confidence in them to work through it is there. And if we can't go tonight, we know we're ready to go tomorrow night. And
it's like your moment of zen.
Yes. And we just got to draw this excitement out for even longer.
Go ahead. Roger, this time the T0 23:4.
Yeah, it is actually a 23-hour delay instead of
the
full
range
24.
Yes.
It's
Not
23.
proceeding at this time.
And the range is proceeding. There you go.
Range gave a go.
Okay.
All right.
Range is proceeding.
Can we cheer yet or not yet?
All stations is the LC. We have a new T0 of 23:42 Zulu. As indicated on the countdown clock, intent is to perform a poll at L-7 minutes.
Okay.
That's a final poll for releasing the go at
42. So that'll be at 6:35.
So they'll be doing a poll to make sure everybody's okay to restart the countdown.
So basically a check with all these different groups.
And say, hey, we're ready to go.
Step 1060.
Go with the countdown starting at
EV069_06 with STL
Pick it up at T-4 minutes at 38.
Yes. Into the FTI.
Buddy, nothing.
Any hiccup at that point.
Somebody hiccups.
8923.
Copy 8923. Roger.
What's going on in that pink building right now?
This is Atlas Launch Control. The new T0 time of 6:42 p.m. We continue to count down toward that. Teams are conducting polls. The managers are validating that their teams are ready. Our next major milestone will be at L-7 minutes when launch conductor Doug Lebo will poll the final team for the final go to pick up the countdown. That's about 10 minutes away from now as we continue to target the end of today's launch window at 6:42 p.m. Eastern Time.
The good news is that they've cleared all their problems that were known. So what's delayed us to point is now no longer the issue. And now they've restarted their activities to set themselves up for that T-7.
Now we have an instant launch window.
Yes, we have an instant, right.
It either goes or it doesn't.
Now, when you say they're polling, how do they actually do that?
You'll hear it.
Yes, all the subsystems, including our operation centers, like I said, the downrange sites, they'll ask the manager in response for each one of those, power, you ready to go?
And we'll hear that.
Power, yes.
They'll say go.
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 And so you'll hear all of them.
Go.
Yeah.
Tango. And you're in trouble. All right?
Wow. This is, I mean, I must admit.
This is
You're having fun.
I
It's a really interesting experience to be,
Place the SRB ignition SNA switch
and
and
just
enable
feel like you have a piece of the pie, right? And this is that weather satellite that we have all been waiting for.
There's hundreds of people on headsets in those buildings over here listening to all these activities and the chatter going on. I sat through a launch a couple of months ago, and literally there are like 20 different channels that everybody's working their systems on, and you can listen to the power people or the computer people, the downrange people, all of these things, or the range people, and see what there's going on, and then the master countdown thing. So there is a lot of communication going on amongst a lot of people to be all ready for the final go.
We should actually talk about the fact that we had perfect weather.
Yes.
There was a front approaching, and
yes.
you know, 3 days ago you look at the forecast and you see a front approaching South Florida. You know, what is the chance that here it could kick up the wind, bring in some cumulus clouds? You know, certainly 3 days ago that could have been an issue, but there was not a cloud in the sky today.
No, it was gorgeous. This is a gorgeous day. For those of up east, this is what sort of convinces you to kind of move to Florida, right? If you haven't been there in the summer.
Total honesty, this morning my son and I were at the pool. I will admit it. Enjoying it and saying, this is the best.
You got in here last night or something?
That's right. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. But this, I mean, to be able to hopefully see a little bit of history is, I think, when we saw those folks lined up on the beaches from Titusville to Cape Canaveral. I mean, it's a spectacular sight, but it's also history.
Thousands and thousands of people are here, all waiting in anticipation for this final 4-minute countdown.
Wow.
Yeah,
and so,
reminding. Let's listen in.
Launch on 5 verified. Roger.
So again, just to
range coordinator, verify solar radiation acceptable for launch. Verify.
Weather checks.
Okay. Speaking of weather,
solar radiation.
Solar weather is important too.
Space weather,
which goes on. We'll have something to do with
at T-minus 4 minutes and holding.
Hold on just a second.
Expecting to come out of the hold in 13 minutes, 45 seconds, and counting from now.
Okay, 13 minutes. Ought to put it in launch at 42.
Pardon me, 9 minutes and 38 seconds.
The math.
And 13 minutes and 34 seconds remaining until the time of launch. Issues seem to be resolved. Managers are conducting their polls. The launch vehicle is ready to fly, and the GOES-R spacecraft has gone to internal power.
Okay.
So it's gone to internal power.
Everything is right now looks good.
All signs pointing to go.
It's just a matter of going through the script.
This is a kind of a historic broadcast for the Weather Channel and weatherchannel.com. Tell us why we should be why we're so excited and why we're here covering this launch of GOES-R.
The GOES is just a revolutionary step in the technology applied to weather forecasting in the geostationary orbit. We are adding a new imager with 3 times the spectral resolution, 3 times the channels, 4 times the spatial resolution, see things so much crisper, and 5 times the speed of the current satellite. So we'll be able to image the entire Western Hemisphere from the North Pole to the South Pole every 5 minutes.
Wow. And
zoom in on a specific storm like a tornado-producing complex or a hurricane every 30 seconds. So when you look at it at that kind of precision, you in the weather forecasting business will be able to really give solid warnings with much more precision and much more confidence to American people so they can take what they need to get out of harm's way.
And this is a multitasking system as well. I mean, it's going to be doing a lot of different things at once.
Yes. We always talk about how we have so many more space weather instruments. We have 3 telescopes staring at the sun, looking at the surface of the sun for solar flares and energetic or coronal mass ejections, a lot of things that come and affect the Earth. We've got instruments measuring how strong of energy is coming from the sun that is coming at the Earth. We've got sensors that are measuring the heavy ions, electrons, protons in the near-Earth environment as they hit the atmosphere.
This is Atlas Launch Control. About 7.5 minutes remaining in our hold at the T-minus 4-minute mark. As the countdown would proceed to a liftoff at 6:42 p.m. Eastern Time, the end of today's launch window.
Okay, Mike.
Okay, so we're still progressing.
So we're still progressing. So they're going to do all their countdown checklists and in this whole period. So that's what they're progressing on schedule like they normally do in any whole process. So getting back to the satellite, so we have all this measurements because the sun...
We're about 4 minutes away from the final poll conducted by launch conductor Doug Lebo, polling the team to pick up the count.
So all this energy from the sun is hitting our magnetosphere, ionosphere, and charging it up, affecting our communications. You must see that in your satellite links that, heavy severe weather or severe magnetic storms do.
Well, and people notice if their GPS goes out, right? I mean, that's a common one.
Absolutely. You know, up in Alaska, they tell me they have a saying, if you can see the northern lights, don't believe your GPS, because the energy coming into the northern from outer space is what's lightening those lights up, and that means your GPS is not very accurate when that's really, really strong. So what the term is, if the northern lights are on, your GPS is wrong. So you've got to be very careful with that. And it also affects many other systems in our communications. But interesting enough, we are so excited about the ABI, the GLM, and maybe even space weather that we forget that we're carrying search and rescue beacons, so that we're listening for whenever someone who carries either a personal device or a boat or an airplane that's carrying a Jeep or a search and rescue warning. When there's a problem and that beacon gets off, our satellite's the first one to hear it and send the message down to people to go rescue them. So in the last year alone, that system has saved 250 people. So we're putting on even more sensitive sensors so that if you're getting weaker signals, you can find those. We're also, we carry a data collection system. So I know you do flood forecasts, and that's a big concern in a lot of places. Well, all those river gauges, we're talking to our satellite as well to give that stage information.
Standing by to pick up the count a little more than 5 minutes from now, leading toward an expected liftoff at 6:42 p.m., pending the final poll that will occur in about 2 minutes.
We can't wait to that.
So we're still progressing as expected. Okay.
33, 35.
Build anticipation, everybody.
Liftoff of the Atlas V
and just so again, so the poll. Just remind people what does that consist of? What is that?
The poll is really going through every critical part of the system and making sure that the person who's watching that
steps are complete.
We're all go. There's no problems. Everything's operating exactly how we expect it. We're ready to go. And when the launch director gets that from all the subsystems, he will say, let's press on with our T-minus 4 minute countdown.
And how long does that physically take, roughly?
Oh, a few minutes.
Yeah, no, for you'll actually hear that, and we'll listen to it as it goes through. So he'll do a round robin, and them all saying go, 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 go. And I say 30 seconds.
Yeah, probably faster when you... Yeah. So, I was thinking that from the T-minus 7 when he was going to start it to our T-minus 4 go.
Oh, yeah. Well, the T-minus 7, they're going to do the poll, and then he'll turn around and say, go, and then we'll...
This is Atlas Launch Control. In just a few moments.
All right, we're coming up on...
Launch conductor Doug Lebo will pull the team for the final go to pick up the countdown. 27 engineers and managers will be pulled for system status and readiness to proceed with the launch.
That's it. Yeah. Because we're on an instant...
This is the final status check before launch for all Atlas vehicle systems, ground systems, the NOAA GOES-R spacecraft, and the U.S. Air Force Eastern Range.
One of them will say range says go.
Hydraulics, pad water deluge system, electrical systems, pneumatics, propulsion systems, flight control, and propellants.
All right, so we've got 27 checks, right? 27.
One of which is by spacecraft. So Pam Sullivan, flight project manager, sitting there ready to say that the spacecraft is ready to go.
Status checks proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems.
And we are going to listen
to
this
go.
Hydraulics.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Centaur systems. Propulsion.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Has gas.
Go.
Electrical systems. Airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
COM.
Go.
Timer.
Go.
GCQ.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Redline monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
AC is go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
Launch director is go, and you have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. Timer T0 is planned for 23:42 Zulu. Start at 23:38 Zulu.
I don't think I took a breath.
That's building anticipation.
Wow.
T0 is set for 23:42 Zulu. Count will start at 23.
Oh my gosh.
Go 16 pictures, you're going to have to hold him down.
Look out.
So the polling is complete, and we have a go for launch at 6:42 p.m. Eastern Time.
Okay.
This is
Count
spectacular.
will resume in about a minute 35 seconds.
All right, well, yeah, we got to pick.
And once resumed, from T-minus 4 minutes until launch, you'll be listening to
Right.
launch conductor Doug Lebo and his team performing the final steps in the countdown procedure.
You don't think so? Oh, yeah.
You'll hear the team confirm securing of Atlas liquid oxygen topping, followed by the call to transfer the Atlas and Centaur stages from ground facility power to internal battery power.
When it hits that sun.
At T-minus 1 minute 55 seconds, the team will command the ground launch sequencer to start, followed shortly by securing the Centaur liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen topping activity. And then at T-minus 1 minute 30 seconds, the team will command the flight control system to
That's
launch
right.
enable
And
and arm the flight
at
termination system.
6:42, this
And
sky is going to
the
light
Atlas
up.
tanks will be verified at flight pressure.
It's going to be
following
amazing.
the verification
6:42,
of
the
Centaur
sky's going to be lit. About 6:44, Jay and I are going to get lit.
That's right.
So, it's going to be fantastic.
You buying?
That's right. That's the other countdown.
Roker's buying. I'll
That's
be
script.
there.
That's a good script.
Of course, he has a big expense account.
Yeah, right. Wow. So now,
So what's happening between now and then? Tell us what's happening over there. What's in the pink building? What's happening?
Well, they're looking at it. They have their final 4 minutes of checks. They're just what it is the systems, the launch vehicle, are the final steps of the fueling and getting everything start to move.
so the 4 minute.
Tired?
Wow. Now, I just noticed Mike just said that once it
We're under
launches,
4 minutes.
it gets turned over to somebody else, at least narrating, I guess. Now, does it get? Are you guys in charge of this as all the way through as it goes up?
No, Mike will take us going off and lift off. But once we get up there, then he'll have his people will be talking and everything come back. So they got the option of picking up anybody that they want to, when they go in. But Mike here will stay with us and all right, 3 minutes.
T-minus 3 minutes.
Wow.
Are you ready, Al?
I'm going to just step. I'm going to get my camera, my phone.
Actually, I want to grab mine too. Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. All right.
This is
What do you want?
Now here, the thing is, don't waste the experience trying to film it.
No.
Okay.
Be here. We can see. We can get a tape. I want to watch this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Feel it.
So we're under 3 minutes now.
I mean, I held my breath for that entire go count, and so I need to be rest before we get going here. What's coming off the right? Is that just ice
We don't
crystals?
have the countdown. NASA should have the
What's
countdown.
coming off of the booster?
What is
Yeah, you can just see it under the bar there.
fuel inside is so cold that you're basically watching that cold.
Hey, folks at the Weather Channel. Yeah, I was going to say, can we get rid of that one bar so we can see the countdown clock? Wow.
Yeah. The local,
This is exciting.
The local weather isn't as interesting as the countdown clock right now.
What's amazing to me is
There we see it in the right there.
okay, and we're gonna drop out when we're gonna take NASA TV full for you folks to get the full effect.
And because we promised Greg that he could turn around and
That's
watch.
right.
That's right.
As much as I look at YouTube, I want to see this.
1 minute 59.
Wow.
Vehicle internal. 155.
So basically, instead of letting it work from the outside computers, now all the computers inside the launch field are the ones controlling it. So everybody's watching right now.
Is it silent? Is it silent inside? Is it silent inside that pink building?
T-minus 1 minute 30 seconds and counting.
30.
Wow.
They're
Okay,
watching.
do they have that now? You've turned it over to them?
Yeah, I think they have.
120. OCU's armed.
FCS count started.
115.
Reduce ECS for launch.
Roger.
110.
Standing by for the
Bethel.
Final range status report.
1 minute.
Rock, report range status.
Range green.
Range is green, and we are go for launch at 6:42 p.m. 50 seconds away from liftoff.
$40 seconds.
Stable at step 3.
T-minus 30 seconds and counting.
28.
ECS reduced for launch.
Roger.
25.
Status check.
Go Atlas. Go Centaur.
Go goes R.
15 seconds and counting. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of NOAA's GOES-R, America's most advanced weather eye in the sky, elevating environmental intelligence to new heights and saving lives.
Has gone to close-up control. Engine response looks good. Now flying the zero angle attack phase of flight. Body rates look good. Booster has throttled down as scheduled. Response looks good. Roll program is complete. Body rates controlling down the middle.
Listening to the voice of Marty Malinowski.
Mach 1.
Standing by to pass through max Q. This is the maximum aerodynamic pressure area. When mechanical stress on the rocket reaches its peak because of the rocket's velocity and resistance created by the atmosphere. NASA's Atlas V
booster has begun throttling back up.
and
response looks good.
GOES-R spacecraft continue into flight. The United Launch Alliance Atlas booster doing its job. 1 minute, 50 seconds into flight. The first two solid rocket boosters will be jettisoned, followed about a second and a half later by boosters 3 and 4.
Coming up on SRB jettison, and we have the first pair and the second pair. Looks like a good separation. Now flying.
Okay, I think they're coming back to us.
All right.
Let's go over there. Wow. We're back.
I'm at a loss for words.
Greg,
Congratulations.
Congratulations. To you and your team.
It's the GOES-R!
Yes, and Jay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, buddy.
Well,
what do you want us to?
So, Greg, what's happening in there now?
Oh, the whole place is cheering just like we were, because to them it's an exciting thing. But they're still monitoring a lot of systems, and they'll be in there for another 3 hours until the launch vehicle upper stage let it go. So that is going to be happening as it's over about Singapore. So
his launch doesn't end after liftoff.
No,
you got
can
3
still
hours.
see it.
Yeah.
But it did not. You were right. It did not reach the sun.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. If it hadn't reached the sun yet, we're not going to see it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So there's a dark trail of clouds right there we can't see.
Yeah. But still, that was amazing. And there's a live picture right now.
Yeah, there's a live picture off of it.
Yeah, so that's a camera on the launch vehicle. So what you're seeing is if from the satellite looking back at its ride. So we're sitting, it's looking back at us way back on the ground.
That's what's amazing to me. The technology today that we can see that is just
Now we're going to an animation there, yeah.
That was a simulation of where it is.
You saw just a faint blue band of Earth there that we still had light. If they go back to it, you see it again.
Is that still? And you can
still see it.
Yeah, there it is over there. It's still going. We got a clear sky. We're sending it all the way.
It's the advantage of a night launch. You can see it a long way.
Okay, and just did a little housekeeping. We want to say goodbye to NBCNews.com's live streaming. I hope you've enjoyed this coverage. We enjoyed bringing it to you. Jen Carfagno and I on the Weather Channel and on NBCNews.com. But we're continuing on Weather Channel, Facebook Live, and, of course, on the Weather Channel. So, and we've been joined by Jay Barbary, a longtime NBC space correspondent. I mean, literally... We've just lost our audio, so...
Start signing.
Okay, we're back. Audio is back. And we've also been joined by Greg Mant, who's a program manager for GOES-R. And Greg, I got to tell you, I'm always amazed that when I turn my car engine on, that it works. So to see something like this... I don't think people can really appreciate everything that goes into this.
No, an old head explained it to me, because I still feel like a young guy in this business. It's only been 30 years, but some of the folks who've gone through this even more times have said, you know what, these systems are so complex, there's always something not quite working right, and at a moment in time, everything is working, and at that point, you better be ready to push that button, like we did tonight. You know, it is always such a complex system, so many humans really working to make everything work just perfectly so that we can have a successful launch. So every time it happens, it looks so exciting and simple to us, but it is a lot of people behind the scenes making sure everything is just perfect, because getting something into orbit is never a simple task.
Do you guys... Go ahead.
Well, we just sent a satellite into space that will make America the leader in weather satellites. Does that hit you now? Is it going to hit you later? What does it feel like?
When it feels great now, because you know what it took to get to this point. But when we get that first image and we start seeing the data flow and get it out to folks, that will be the exciting time to really see it in work, in an action, and people start putting in their warnings. Hey, GOES-R showing this. We got to do this. That's where I'll feel even better. The human in me will feel better than the engineer in me, who's really excited right now.
Do you guys? Is there a launch party, a celebration, when everything is said and done?
Don't tell him.
Yeah.
Can we come?
I think there's a lot of parties in many places.
Oh, look at that.
Okay. We're going to actually go to break here. We've been live nonstop. We'll take a quick break in about 30 seconds, and we'll be back on the Weather Channel and just talk about what happened. GOES-R launched. It launched at the very end of the launch window.
We got to see basically the dawn of a new era in weather forecasting technology. And that's pretty amazing.
Weather imaging from space, 22,000 miles above the Earth.
So we will be back with more coverage right here on the Weather Channel.
You bought a wig, a jersey, and overpriced nachos. Don't let